Well, hello. It's a warm end of summer evening. Tonight we've got 28, 27.5 degrees still in here, and I am wet. But I have to work, so here we go. So what have we got? Well, we have got John's PRS 513. And it's in for a refret. Sorry, I'll keep the camera still now. Lovely looking thing, massively complicated, wonderfully complicated wiring. You'll notice it's got two switches, one 3-way, one 5-way. And if you look on the back, you can see what marvellous things it gives away. Super switch down there for the 5-way, and then a 3-way up here, and a beautiful PRS style circuit board doing clever things in there. Nice big brass looking block there. Yeah, so it's what did we say there? 3 there, no, 5 there and 3 there. 3 over there. Okay, 3 on the super switch, right, fine. Okay, anyway, it's got loads of tone options, and these pickups are great. I've never really looked at these before or seen them. I don't quite know what they are. It'd be nice to take them apart, but I'm not going to do that. The reason this guitar is in for a refret, it's a sort of second backup, not second backup, it's a backup guitar. And John finds that the frets are too slopey beveled, if you can see there. They are quite, yeah, they take away a bit too much fingerboard. So he's struggling with a finger going off the end there, and he wants to keep it for a long time and for it to be a good second guitar. So we're going to refret it with stainless steel, which is sitting there in a column of stainless steel. And so the process of tonight's work is I've just been letting things charge up, and I've been doing a bit of preparation off to the side. So in preparing for refretting, I've cut up all my bits of paper. Got my tools out, cutting tools. I've cut the frets, stainless steel hard as hell. I've got some pads ready for blocking off ends here, so when I come to bevel the frets tomorrow I can get most of them done, but no risk of the beveling block running into the paintwork here, so we kind of keep that safe, and then we cover off this with tape. So yeah, so getting ready, and the next bit is remove the frets, followed by, we'll take the nut off, then we'll remove the frets, then we will clean up the fingerboard and prepare it for refretting. So you can probably see that the frets are grubby. There's lots of play wear, or not play wear exactly, but grime. One of the things I noticed about this guitar, which struck me as quite unusual, was when I felt the frets, they felt sharp almost going this way. I never felt that before, catching my fingers, and on examining it a bit closer, you can't really see the sharpness of it, but you can see very clearly they've been flattened at the top, whether that's with the fret leveling, but there's a clear flat spot on the top, and that flat spot is so precise that it actually cuts the finger almost running it across there. So of course we'll get rid of that by putting on some new frets. So what are the challenges of a guitar like this? Well, first of all, it's a set neck. So unlike the last PRS, there's no removing the neck if we wish to. It's a set neck, so we're going to do it all attached to the guitar. That means we have to find ways to support the neck as we're tapping. It also means we can't get it through the fret press over there. We could get some of it through, but well, it's tricky. It's a tricky thing because there is a limit. You can only get up to about here through on the fret press, and then you have all this lot has to be tapped in. Now on top of that, there's also the top 4 frets need to be pre-sized and put in, because we won't get the fret end beveling file up to here. So we have to get these as close as we can to perfect prior. We could do the whole lot of them that way, but you do lose the sort of precision edge. Now, a thing to note with this one, a kind of decision making when you come to thinking about the edges of fretboards. Let's see what we can see. Okay, so you can see the metal pretty much goes to the okay, there's a mixture. Well, there's a bit of rounding off that's happened here. So the rounded off bit, you can see it exposes the tang. If I can point you at it, let's find a pointy thing. Of course, there's nothing suitable to point with. So the fret tang that's exposed, okay, just there, that's exposed, and then this bit here is kind of covered in clear poly really. So when you're refretting a guitar, one of the questions you have for yourself is, do I go right to the edge with the metal of the fret, or do I stop short and fill in? Now with this, we can see that there is a sort of an extra bevel on the end here, which is slightly unusual. And I had a worse case of this on that Gordon Smith recently, but this is only very minor by comparison. But this makes it very difficult to start. You've already lost a bit. Before you can even get your fret started, let's see, here we go. So your fret can't even start from out. See if I can get my pointy thing. Can't even start flush with the edge here because it's already got a little bevel inwards. So the end has to start here and then it bevels back to here. So this little bevel on the edge here is no good to anyone really. I mean, yes, in one sense it gives you a sense of rounded off thing, but typically rolled fretboards are better done between the frets, and yes, then you do get a little bit of bulk sticking proud here kind of, but then it goes rounder, smoother there. So anyway, it's just a question. So if we started out and none of the fret was showing, you might think, well, actually we could treat it as a bound neck and fret inside of those edges, and in a way that's one way of trying to preserve the edges. But if we're going to bevel the edge of the frets with a block, we're going to run the risk of scuffing slightly the finish down the edge here. So we have to be prepared to make some repairs on the edge of here if necessary, and it's only clear poly. There are some bits missing down here, if I spot them. I don't know if you can see them. Where are you? Down there. Not very visible. There is a bit of a break there. Can you see just sort of in the center now? So there's a bit we can sort of cover that up and fill that in as well. So we'll be prepared for the end beveling file to take away a bit of the finish on there, and that's only the clear finish. So we're going to, the question as I was sort of getting to was, do we fret inside of an edge, or do we cut the slot all the way through again? And one of the good things about being able to cut the slot all the way through and then kind of fretting right to the edge and possibly having a tiny bit of fill in just to kind of gloss it over. The benefit of doing that is you get to clear out the slot with your saw, especially if you're changing the gauge of the frets at all. That's handy too, because you want to make sure that the slots you're cutting or that you're using are wide enough for your new tangs. If you're going a tiny bit larger, in this case I'm going up a little bit wider, and then we want the extra height obviously to fret this, to level the frets back. So we're going to remove the frets, take off the nut, remove the frets. Prior to removing the frets, we're going to back bow the neck with the truss rod, and if you think about it, oh, my hand's got stuck. The reason we do that is because the idea, I suppose, is if we look here, your fingerboard is there, your fret tang is there, and your fret crown is there, sits like that. And the idea is if you bow the neck slightly backwards, what you get is a kind of opens up the slot slightly, and there's your bang, and then your thing sort of sits a bit looser in there. That's the idea of back bowing the neck. So the idea is that it helps to release the fret a bit easier. And of course you have to then return it to flat afterwards before you do anything else, because you don't want to do any work after that with the neck still back bowed. So I'm just going to clean my, got some tape glue on my fingers. I'll just get that off with solvent. Okay, so the plan is to remove the frets, clean up the slots, and then clean up the fingerboard. And in this case, it's a bit dirty, but it's in pretty good condition. But I think we're going to clean the slots with these cute little detanged fret, jumbo fret tools. So we can clean the slot once the fret's out. But I think I might also then hand sand the whole lot just to not level it, but just smooth it out. What I'll also do somewhere in the back of this, I'll do a little test to make sure this is poly finish. I'm pretty certain it will be, but the question is what is the finish on the neck? But I'm looking at that, I would say it's almost certainly poly. It's not really the end of the world, even if it isn't. You can mix poly and nitro reasonably well, but you know, purists would be upset if that was going to happen. But you know, this isn't perfect. We've got little dings here and there, and so on and so forth. So anyway, but it would be nice if we'll certainly take care of any scuffing that the edge beveling file makes, but also these little chip-offs on the other side here, which we can look at in more detail. Right. Yeah, so let's put this down now. You'll see me in my glorious grand sweatiness. Just have to do it, really. There's no point trying to stay cool here because I can't. So I'm just having a quick look at the way this nut, it's a scalloped nut. Which we don't want to keep on there. Let's have a look what we got here. Right, there's my flannel. Yeah, so we'll tap off this nut for now. Get it shifted. And then we're going to replace it with a tusk nut. I'm just scoring down here in case this is attached. I don't think it is. I think what's gripping this is glue rather than finish. Yeah, but it's just as well to. Oops, sorry. Just as well to check it. I wonder if that's a hand scalloped thing or if it's a factory one. I don't know. But anyway, so we've got a replacement here, which is the closest I can get in terms of the correct size, but I think it's a little shorter. No, it's actually spot on. This has a 3/4, half a millimeter closer together string spacing than the previous one, and that was deliberate because I want to do anything I can while I'm refretting this to make sure that we cure this string falling off. Now with this bridge here, we can't move the saddle from side to side, and because it is it's a set neck, we can't take the neck off and readjust it to make any alignment alterations. So it's all down to what we can do with the refretting, adding a bit more of a vertical end to the frets. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the truss rod adjuster and I'm going to tighten the truss rod, tighten the truss rod to give the neck some back bow, and there's quite a bit of tightening. So just peer down the neck and I can see it back bowing as much as we can for the time being. And the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some water to the fingerboard. I'll kind of come back and add a bit more afterwards, just in case, because I'm going to now use a fantastic Hosco bought thingy clippers, grippers, pullers. These are really, really sharp, and they're great for picking up frets. They don't cause any problems at all. Now I'm going to run up my soldering iron, get some heat into it. I'm going to bring it down this end if I can. See where I can place it. That's any good. Let's put it over there. Get tangled up. Sorry, I'll be with you in a second. Right. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by using these beautiful things to lift the edge of the fret, like so. And I'm going to do it on all of them. And I'm not even heating them up just to get this lifted bit going to begin with. I'm just seeing how well this little sharp teeth fit under here. And then what I'll do after that is I'll come back with the soldering heat. This is really good. If you get right on the edge, you get a perfect start on these without having to crush downwards or put any force into it, which is the real thing you want to avoid when you're starting to lift frets, because if you have to press down on them, you get this sort of crush damage. Now I'm going through, just probably out of picture now, just snipping all of these to get started, and then we'll use heat on the frets to hopefully soften any glue that's in there. Now, in my experience, if somebody's refretted these in the past with super glue or CA glue, whoops, that missed the edge there, with CA glue, I found that the CA glue doesn't really seem to soften at all. So now we've got the soldering iron with some heat in it, and we come back here. How are you doing? Right, let's have a bit of a closer up. Here we are on the first 3 or so, right? So I place this back where I started on the edge, where it's starting to move, and then I kind of support protect the soldering iron from slipping off sideways by just resting it on the top, but then it's cradled inside this teeth jaws of this file, and then I sort of, as it warms up, I just sort of work my way along. Now some people insist on using little fret fingerboard protectors. I've tried using that in the past, and to be honest, realistically, unless you can fit them right underneath the tang of the existing fret, then they can't really hold the wood down that you're trying to keep from coming up. You can hear it's melting or boiling the water and the grime. Yeah, so and the point is, if you, in order to be able to get these fret protectors underneath the tang, you have to have lifted the tang far enough out to get the fret protector strip under there, and that sort of defeats the object because you're pretty much on the way. So I tend not to use them, and I tend to kind of concentrate mainly on this heating and watering and back bowing. Heating, watering, back bowing, and very sharp fret pullers, and with those you tend to get a very good pull out with no tear out, should I say. Okay, I'm going to zoom out a bit further so you can watch the rest coming up. So fingerboards have no problem with water like this, they don't mind it at all. With the soldering iron, with the soldering iron heat, they hopefully it makes a bit of steam somewhere in there, perhaps down where the tang lives, and hopefully that heat just helps it order release the fret easily enough. I removed some frets the other day from it was a Pacifica, I think it was, and the fretboard was just horrible. It was like, I almost don't know what to call it. It was like flaky. It was like Weetabix, flaky like Weetabix, like compressed flakes of stuff. Horrible. And it was bone dry. This rosewood, you can feel that it's got oils in it that keep it all together, and you know, help it to remain as a nice organic material. Whoops! But the Pacifica neck that I did the other day, defretted it and re-radiused it, and it was, I mean, it just, chips were coming off it, flakes, like imagine flakes of Weetabix or flakes of cornflakey bits were coming off it, and you know, it almost didn't matter how much oil you put into it, it would never reconstitute it as a nice grained wood, because it wasn't to begin with. Anyway, I'm going to see whether it makes a worthwhile neck. I was lining it up to have some gold, Evo gold frets, last of the supply, nearly the last of my supply, but then I'm thinking, actually, is it good enough a material? And I'm not sure it is. I mean, is the neck good enough? I've re-radiused it to 9.5 inches, so maybe it's good enough, but maybe I won't put the best of the two sets of frets in there. Thing is, it's going to be made as a parts caster for sale, so don't want to overdo it with the nice bling now, do I? Okay, so good old slow boring stuff, nipping away along here slowly. So I think we're coming to the end of our delightful little mini heat wave that we have been enjoying here. You know, we've had some lovely time in the hammocks, swinging under the leafy ash trees. Believe it or not, still surviving ash trees, under beautiful blue skies. And the only downside to that weather is that even by early evening time up here, because it's so well insulated, it never gets cool here. Next week we're looking at dropping 10 degrees, and that will be comfortable in here for working, doing setups. But now, as you can see, there's no way I can work in here without ending up wringing wet. But anyway, I thought, well, this is the way it is. I'm not going to shy away from the fact that at 27 degrees you're going to sweat. Anyway, so I seem to have had a nice run of refrets recently. A Gordon Smith, a PRS, another PRS, and later on this week, or at the weekend or early next week when I finish this one, I've got Mark's. Did I say? I didn't say this wasn't Mark's. No, this is John's. But I got Mark's Gibson Les Paul Custom with a maple neck, a 1978 black and gold beauty, but flat, worn out frets. So, and he's gonna. It's a kind of guitar that he's. It's become second fiddle to his Ibanez, which is a great guitar anyway. You know, modern Ibanezes are such great quality, and especially it's a what was it, a Genesis FG, oh yes, RG, sorry, RG 550 Genesis one, but it's a beautiful guitar, and so his custom Les Paul has become secondary because it's not playable by comparison. So that's great for me because I can refret it, get a really well cut tusk nut in there to make sure that it plays and stays in tune from now on, and give it some new lease of life with some lovely new frets. And one of the reasons that he wanted to refret it was he was he'd noticed that over the years it had become harder to bend notes, and he was using 8s, or he is using 8s on it. So it became harder to bend notes because there's no material, that the strings are so low to the fingerboard due to the low fret heights that you don't get any finger mass behind the string or to the side of the string when you start to bend. So it's you know, if you put new frets in and increase that height of the crown, and then obviously the string then sits, when you press the string down to bend it, it sits quite high off the fretboard, and therefore you get a chance to get a lot more finger mass to the side of it, and the push is much easier for the bend. Anyway, so the last 4 now are coming out, and these are going to be the 4 that have to be done by hand, really, just to make sure we stay well away from that end, well away of trying to end bevel with the block at this end, because you'll either hit the end of the finish of the guitar body, or you scrape the top of the guitar. What I'm doing is, just out of interest, is I'm going to keep the frets, those 4 frets, to one side, and I'm going to see if I can copy them precisely for length before we go anywhere near pressing them in, and that way hopefully we'll be right on the mark. Right on the mark, John. Okay, there's 4 and the final one. There we go. Now, to sand this, I'm going to obviously need to dial in these pickups somewhat, if I can, to get them a bit lower down. It's actually quite hard to reach this fret. There we go. Oops, don't just throw it, put it where you want to keep it. There's the 4. Right, let's switch off the soldering iron. Let's transport it back. So it's I think this refret is a sort of 3-day staged thing, in so far as today I do the removing of the frets, the prepping of the new frets, and eventually, hopefully, the prepping of the slots, followed by the tapping in of the new frets with some wood glue, and then the leaving overnight, which is the important bit. And then tomorrow, come in and do the end beveling. Okay, so let's just wipe a little bit down. I mean, it's just grimy. We can clean that up by hand. But so when you remove the frets, you can see that we still haven't broken the end bit, but it's not perfect. So I think we need to do that with a blade. We need to make sure that the slots here take the new width, and that's probably 6, and that may well be 5. So we've probably got a tiny bit of expanding to do, because we don't want to it to fit too tightly so that it causes the neck to back bow under fret expansion, if you like. So we'll take care of that. And so I think what we'll probably do, I'll probably do the, and let's think, shall I do a bit of a clean, let's do a rag and solvent clean down first, and then let's do the cutting of the slots, followed by toing and froing with the little sanding things. So let me get some naphtha solvent, a fresh bottle. Now at this point we've still got kind of a lot of fair amount of sharp grime sticking up from the fretboard, so could either clean with this type of solvent, which will help take away a lot of the mess, and probably better to go over these bits in that sort of longitudinal way and then side to side. So you can see there's quite a bit of grime coming up, which is fine. It's what you expect. And then we'll sand the tops of the slots, which get quite kind of crunchy and crinkly over the years. You can see lots of goo. Yeah, it gets pretty crunchy over the years, and can't see what you can see there, so hopefully zoomed out far enough. Yeah, just about. Yeah, so it's the thing to keep in mind when you're refretting is, or fretting for the first time, is that the quality of your fretting depends on your quality of your preparation. So the more we clean the slots out, the more we double check that the slots, the slots are cleaned out, the more likely it is our new frets will seat properly, and so on. So while I'm at it, I'm just going to get rid of a bit of the other obvious grime that's sort of sitting on the surface here. We'll do some more cleaning a bit later on. We'll also take the bridge apart and give that a nice clean up too. Okay, so what I will do is I'm going to now put this back straight. So to do that, we will, I don't know if you can see, but I'm going to re-de-thingy this, going back about as much as I did, back to neutral there, and just have a quick eyeball of it, but then I'll check it with a straight edge. To be honest, any long straight edge will do at this point. You don't need the fancy slotted one, because you're not putting it on any fret, over any frets. So that's still got a bit of bow in it, so I'll take that, try and take that out a tiny little bit. I think we're just about in a neutral spot there. The tiniest bit of pressure on it. Have a quick look. Yep, that looks good to me. That's nice and flat. So now is the time to think about the edges, or think about or think about the slots. So we can do, since I've kept the original four, I've kept 4 of the, oh no, I left my, oh no, stupid me, I've left my thingy. I've left my vernier digital calipers at home. I've been using them over the week, well, over the last couple of days, for damped. Okay, so what I won't be able to tell immediately is exactly how much the difference is in the tang. Actually, they don't look different. They don't look any wider. It's pretty much spot on. Okay, well, with that in mind, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put this back here where it belongs. Put this one back here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So my next sort of challenge is to just cut through the edges here without splitting any more off, and I find that having a little needle, no, not needle, razor thingy to kind of cut inwards is quite a good idea. And that will cut down any of the finish that's, see, that's not a smooth slot at all. Bits sticking in the way, so it'd be good to saw through. Now as you come anywhere down near the top end of your guitar and you're thinking, wait a minute, I'm getting close with the saw, what I think that we do at that point is we get some either masking tape, or have I got much in the way of, I've got some other frog tape left. So I'm going to start by going to screw in these a bit more if they will go down. I can tell they're very close to the surface, but I want them I want them lower at this point, if I can get them lower, please. So what I'm looking to do here, and I'm going to look to mask off this edge here. I'm going to put some sticky foam on there as well to block, to safeguard the end here. But that's going to be sitting on top of the green tape. So the green tape is fairly inert as far as the finish is concerned. It's hardly likely to pull anything out. So I'm sort of getting everything lined up. And really what I want is the whole of this top end to be safely covered off so that whatever happens, I'm not going to run or not going to risk scraping or sanding anything away. And this is quite a lot of green tape to use, but it's worth getting it right. And on top of this green tape, then I can put other tapes if need be. So for example, Gorilla tape is very good for resisting the touch of a blade's front edge. You know, it can bounce off. So it's you wouldn't necessarily want to stick Gorilla tape to your paint work, but if you've got your green stuff all over it like this, you can do it. So we get the Gorilla tape. So what I would want to do is, so when we think about the blades coming through, they're going to hit either side here or down there. So I'm going to pull a piece of tape. The first thing I'm going to do is have a look at covering off this bit here, which is where the foam is going to go as well. So that can go to there, that can go to there. It's not a perfect fit, but I'll just sort of fold it a bit. That's sitting nicely upon the frog tape, so there's no risk of it coming to any harm. And the same on the other edge, and then we'll do a bit of cross safeguarding, keeping any blade ends away. Like so. And this then can stay on there the whole time until we've finished, and then can be removed. So this is all going to aim to protect the blade coming through in case it just touches onto the paintwork. Right. So what I'm also going to do then is I'm going to have a piece of this. We don't really need this for today, but tomorrow I'm going to put a piece of foam in there and a piece of foam in there like so. In that case, if block gets anywhere close to it, it'll bounce off there. Right, so having done that, I think I'm going to use this Japanese saw, and we'll go with softwood. So I'm cutting back, pulling into the, hopefully, this is a bit grungy, this slot here, pulling into the slot, and the purpose is really to cut the clear finish without flaking it the other way. So I'm going down this side, pulling in, now this is a not a bad saw that you can use. It's not meant as a fret slot saw, but actually it does pretty well if you need it kind of much more control. Those big long ones are actually quite difficult to wield. So here it's quite difficult now because I've got a bit of sticking up Gorilla tape, but we can sort of get in there by manipulating with a pushing finger and a pulling finger. So what I'll do now is just spin this round to the other side. Spin it round to the other side. And then we'll do the same thing on this side. We'll do what you can see, sort of. Oh yeah, like that. And we'll just pull in the clear, break the clear seal, and pull it into the slot, if anything. So straight away I can tell that these slots are quite crunchy. Now that makes me wonder whether either, I can't remember if these are, I'm not even sure if John said these are original frets or not. I'm thinking about Mark's Gibson Les Paul Custom, and I think this will be its second refret, so we kind of expect to find some difficulties. It's very difficult to cut this through without I can do it with this, but very difficult. You always get some white build up. Yeah, there's a build up of material at the end here on each fret, and there's some shiny. This is interesting. I think this has been super glued in place at the ends. Somebody's put super glue in at the ends and it's built up into a crunchy mass. So here's my evidence. See the shiny bit? That's gone underneath to keep the ends down, ideally, and that's fine. You can see it on both. Not quite as easy. I've torn up some of it, but it's on both sides. But it's being wicked in once the fret's been tapped in. But what's happened is it's built up a crunchy mess under at the end of each of these frets, and that's probably from factory, from the workshop, because it's not a bad material to use, but it does leave people like me with a challenge, because super glue really crunches up your slots badly, and it makes them harder to clear. And then when you're working at this kind of distance, you see that we are so close to yeah, we're in a right up close to finish and stuff. That's why I covered that all off. So I'm going to start at this end with the sort of regular slot fret saw, and I'm just going to run it through. Now I can feel from this that this is super glue heavy at the ends, and it's okay because we'll take care of it, but it's making a really crunchy cut, and that's why I wouldn't want to try and treat this as a bound fretboard, because we'd never get that super glue out of these edges. It would just prevent the new frets from going in. So I think the decision that it has to be cut through with the saw for a proper clean through, followed by filling the edges again with a clear finish, a clear poly at the end. But yes, so that's my diagnosis of the way glue has been used here already. It does make the refret harder when somebody's used super glue, and I have used it in the past, because one of the things it does is it makes the fretting much quicker. If I had to do a refret in a day, I would use super glue, because you can be sure that it's done before you can get it all done. You can do the fretting in the morning, it's dry after lunch, and you can get on with it. So this is really crunchy, and as you can see, the dangerous part is that the saw doesn't want to go through that crunchy stuff very well. and it's also, you know, it creates a bit of stick out of stuff at the other end as you clear it out. So it's, you can hear it biting into all this brittle glue. So I'm not even using the depth guide here. I don't want that. I just want a clean run with this thing to get these cleared out. I'd rather have it a fraction deep. Worry about that. Now I've just realised I'm coming from this end. I'm going to cover up here. Some of you are probably starting to get nervous. Right, so we'll just treat it. Can't do any harm putting more on than less. More on than less. And not only just the green stuff, but we want the heavy duty protection. And that's what the, what you call it, is good for. Gorilla tape. We'll try to cover the top, aren't we? So let's go in there to there. That's fine. So always worth kind of wasting the extra material like this. It seems like a big, you know, a big overkill of protective tape, but it's so much better than not. Now I'm going to find where I got to. Oh, blimey, crunchy. I mean, you can really hear it and feel it. I mean, once it's clear, everything will be fine, but it's very difficult to do it also without flaking out and damaging the end. So putting extra poly on there at the end is a good idea anyway. So again, I'm going to use a backward push with this to get it to do what I want it to do. It splits away. It's impossible to cut without some breaking away of the finish, because it's a tight fit, and it's been gripped by this hard super glue. Yeah, I mean, there's flakes off the finish. Well, we'll sand that down and then build it up again. I mean, that's why it's attractive to try and fret within it, but you know, what you would gain in preserving that finish, you would lose in the ability to clean out these slots in any meaningful way, because you would be struggling to get the frets sitting down at the ends. Oh, blimey. Yeah, it just doesn't like it. It chips off the finish right at the edges. But anyway, we have the technology to rework that. You can always come back, build it back up. What you don't want to be doing is finding yourself at the end of the fretting process with a bunch of frets that just aren't seated, you know, because you might as well then start again. Yeah, see, look, it breaks off little bits of clear finish. It is pretty thick, so we'll have to sand that back to soften it all off. But like I say, we really can't get into these crunchy ends without it. Even if you try and push in one end and pull in the other, it doesn't quite, somehow just doesn't protect it. Yeah, this is where the super glue is a killer. It's literally grabbed the thing, and so pushing and pulling with one finger. And watching where the height of the blade is at the other end. So you can probably tell from my exertions that seating the frets is the all-important thing. Other things like, you know, the finish on the edge of the fretboard can be reworked. Oh God! Can you see it sticking on that glue, or you can see it or feel it. It's really stuck on that crunchy glue. It's come out there like shards of glass. One more to go. It's chipped the edge, clear stuff on the edges, which it's bound to do. Can't really avoid that. So, God, it's stuck. No real option there. But we can rebuild it. We have the technology. There we go. Blimey. So at that point, I think I'm all done. You can see the detritus coming out the ends, which is okay. We'll get rid of that. So what we want to do is probably run everything over here again, just to be sure. Right, while we've got this saw in our hands, let's just make sure that it's good. I mean, it really, the CA glue really is not what you want. Although you can understand people doing it, and I've seen loads of guitar builders wicking glue in once they put their frets in, you know, so it's quite common. Now what I'm going to do after this, now I know I've cut my way through, I'll probably now be more, I'll find myself running a blade through it to clean it out. I'll probably start sanding, softening off the edge here where these chips of clear finish have come off, so that they're not going to be a complete pain to fill. I mean, we can fill them, sand them back a bit, and so I guess what I'm saying is the third day of the refret part of things is often spent propped up at home on the kitchen table with the touch-up poly, going over these little bits on the fingerboard to make sure it's all smooth and repaired. This one hasn't gone through. I've missed this one. Oh, lordy. There we go. I think I missed that one too. How did I do that? So using wood glue, as I will make any future removal of frets a much easier process. Notice I'm holding up the neck, so I'm not pressing down in the center of the neck, because it's obviously not supported very well at this point. So I have a fingerboard or slots that are cleaned out. I now have my little cool tools, which I can now run pre-radiused. This one's actually a bit too long. Okay, so I can run across here and get rid of the crusty super glue that's on top, and any of the ragged, scratchy, crusty bits that stick out. You can feel it with your fingertips. Feel it with your fingers. You can tell when it's smooth, and it's just, all I really want to do at this point is remove any crusty bits that are going to obstruct the placing in of new frets. Now what I am looking for, and have temporarily lost, is my, where could it go? I had it earlier on and I used it for something. The wire brush thing. Well, that's pretty rubbish. How can you lose a wire brush just like that? I used it. I don't think I put it back, which is why it's cunningly behind the mirror. So I just use it to clean out the what do you call it. So let's have a zoom up. It's terrible having a having a view straight overhead and filming on the other camera from straight overhead as well. It's not very imaginative. Sorry about that. So I don't know how long this will take me today, because I have to say the fret preparation bit is as time consuming as, and has to be as careful as the slot preparation bit, because if the frets aren't right, they also won't sit in properly and we'll be struggling. So yeah, that's good. That spotted where this shiny super glue. I thought perhaps to begin with, I thought it was sometimes when you squeeze a fret or something squeezes hard against this rosewood, you get that kind of shiny impression, but actually it was too much, and what it turns out to have been is actually the telltale sign of CA glue. There we go. So that's starting to feel nice. And I have to go all the way down here. So what I might do in a minute, since it's Friday night and I could do with some brain candy to take my mind off this, I might go off camera for this. But I suppose what I'd want to do is a load of the fret preparing, so I could show you one part of that process now. How about I start by turning this around, cleaning up the first fret, and then show you how I prepare the first fret in terms of size and whatnot. There we go. First fret, so we'll do this same business here. Oh, we'll have the bigger one now. And I think what I'll do is, I think I will do that. I'll just show you the prepping of a single fret, and then well, I kind of do all of that stuff off camera. So there's my prep of the slot. Get a nice feel of it. Okay, so if I pull the first fret off my flypaper, I don't know what you can see. Oh yeah, so there's the fret. It's got kind of gnarled edges and stuff, so the first thing I do is I will start by snipping off the tang. Get the right way around, it might help. I will use my nibbler thing to snip off the tang a bit more than that, just make it a clean cut. So this is stainless steel, sorry, so it's a bit hard to do. Stainless steel, see the tang's been cut back. So then what I tend to do is I tend to get this pliers and I tend to cut back to about there, if I can, and I call that my start point for one side. So, oh, and what I might do is, if I get me pliers, I also take care of this. There's usually a little twist here on the tang, which I like to take care of. I also like to, when it comes down to it, I like to also file under here, which I can do with a triangular file, and usually, you can see me there, if I get the block I usually use. Which one is the one what I usually use? Is it that one? No, it's not that one. Is it that one? No. Is it that one? Yes, the 12. I have a little block with a groove in it, man. So typically I would take this one, place it in here, and just kind of file me the flush underside. Quite difficult to do actually. So just the idea is to get rid of the remains of the tang, so it's a much cleaner looking, I can never see where there's your camera, so a much cleaner looking end. So that is where I would kind of start with. I'd place that overhanging slightly, and then I would mark similar nearly close cut on there, like so, but about 2 mils over. Actually, that could be closer, I think. So that could just go flush with the very end, and then we go, yeah, so it's vertically, I don't know, could do it with like a block or something. Might be smart and go, right, here's a vertical block, line it up with there, and then at this end here we do the similar thing, which would probably come to about there. Get rid of all of that, and then I would get my red cutters, which are quite powerful, but they need some muscle too because this is stainless steel. You see how it chops that bit off. Starts to give me, I can feel the blisters starting already. So then I cut the tang overhang, baby, like so. Come on. And if you can't get this right first time, you end up having to cut a new fret, possibly. Come on. Yeah, that will do. So what I tend to then do is just trim this straight edge with the green pliers, which are just about good enough, and then I would prepare the end in the same way. Could be done with a Dremel cutting disc. Actually, that's one way of flattening this out, but kind of doing it by hand with a file is all right. And then a little tweak. So each fret, just to get it ready for the slot, needs tweaking, so we get it down to looking like so. Okay, and then if I were to tap that in now, I would have about 1 millimeter maximum either side, and that would then be left for the beveling block to take away. And of course, now it makes me think of the beveling block. What I would then do at this end is to cover this off, and then I'm going to use some Gorilla Tape around here as well, just to make sure that you know, nothing, we don't bang into this, and if we do, the Gorilla Tape will take the initial impact. Now here it is. So every refret gets as covered up as this, because there's no failure is not an option in this kind of way. So let's see if I can figure out the way to protect it, like so, like so, like so, like so. That protects these bits here, maybe a little bit more on there, no harm. Again, you know, it's not cheap, this sort of material, but you know, how much better not have to worry. So that's all now taken care of. So that's a single fret prepped for fitting and then ultimately thingying with the beveling block, end beveling. And of course the object of this will be to get more of a straight bevel or a less angled bevel, so that we reclaim as much of the fret width as possible. Then of course we'll put on the slightly narrower nut and have a tiny bit more space for the strings inside there as well. So mainly that's what I'm going to do all the way from now, and I think that's pretty boring. The only place where it will be slightly different will be at this end. We go down to this end here, where I would do a similar but more complex part. So down at this end, I've got the last fret in my hand. I've cleaned those last 4 frets, so I can do these now. So I'll snip this back quite generously, cut back with the green to about, I think it's about 2 mils I leave on. God. So there's my start point on that side. Tiny bit of bend to straighten out on that bit, and then we will just put it on the block, hold it in place. So you probably can't see this bit, but I'm just flattening down the tang. We want this little bit to not stick up if at all possible. So the best way to make sure of that is to take down the tang so it's not got the tang root, the stump. So then I get that there, I can line it up there, place it on there, and I can draw another mark. Again, this is just for me to say that's about right there, cut back. Now what we know with these four, we actually know what exact length they're going to need to be, and we're going to bevel them by hand. So it's going to be deciding how steep the thing is by hand, and we've got the initial one to compare it to for length. Now then, after that, the only real challenge is fitting it precisely. Oh, I'm cutting this overhang. Why am I cutting this overhang? I'm a silly person. That's because we're going to fill, weren't we, rather than have metal to the edge. That's why I did it. Yeah, that was my clever plan. Also because it's easier not to be trying to bevel. If you don't have the fret at the tang going right to the edge, you don't have so much of the hard work beveling it. Okay, so here I have, what I do is I place those four now in that place, and then I would start hand sanding these back until I got them to what lined up precisely with the original ones for lengthwise, but obviously aiming for a steeper block, a steeper angle on the tang on the end. And this would be manual, I'm afraid, it, you know, because I can't get there with the block, so I'm going to have to be making this up as I go along. So sort of a visual measure. I think that's about right length overall. Yeah, not far off. That's nearly perfect. So this thing, I keep getting little nicks from some tool that I'm using that I can't tell where it's coming from. It's really annoying. Let's do these four. Yeah, I get a little nick on the surface of the fret. I mean, it'll come off with leveling, but yeah, but it bugs me, man. It's Saturday, no, Friday night, music and bikes night. Yeah. God, you can feel my suffering with this bleeding stainless. It is hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get these two near right length, and then obviously there'll be some careful hand working. See, that's got a mark on it, so I don't know exactly which bit or how it's putting a little mark on the thing, so I'm going to have to try and find it. So it can't be this one, can it? Right, because the unwanted bit of or the good fret sticking outside. Can it be this? Oh, can it be this one? Couldn't it be this one? Putting a. Let's try this. Let's see. I think it's going to have to be one of these. Not that one. Not that. Okay, so it's none of those two. Let's cut this short. Well, it can't be that one. I have a feeling it may be in the original cutting of the frets, but quite why, I'm not entirely sure. Okay, so there's the second one, close to the right length, but maybe a little bit over. And we can snip a little bit off one end here to help that along. What happens with the tools when you're working with stainless is when you least expect it, you tend to have the tool explode when doing stainless steel frets. It'll just say that's it. So you get the metal will literally shear, and you're left with holding half of a pair of pliers, and it will just give up in the middle of doing it. Okay, so this one, I'm not seeing any, I'm not yet seeing any marks. Those grunting noises are genuine. So you can imagine this is going to take me hours at this rate. So you can see I've got lots of spare length of stuff here. So I've not made any more little nicks. So something it's happening somewhere in the process. You think I'm making up those manly grunts, don't you? Well, I'm not. That's my gymnasium time. It's knackering the edge of these files. I'm going to have to get some new ones shortly, because I've done about 5 stainless refrets in a short time, and that is a bit too many for my tools to survive. Okay, so that's about right, a little bit more, and I'll get the 4th one. So the idea here is I'll just basically work these 4 separately. I'm going to take a bit more careful hand shaping. This one's got a nick on it as well from somewhere, so let's see if I can see if I can actually get it to cut. Can't actually figure out exactly where, but hey. Now the question is, can I lose it in the overall length of this? Let's have a look. I think I just almost can. Let's take this away. So, well, Lorks a mercy. Yeah, because before I'd done any stainless refrets, I'd often heard people sort of talking about how terrible it was, and some luthiers just wouldn't touch it at all. Some charged a huge premium. I charge 60 quid premium, which pretty much covers the extra cost for the wire and a sort of 30 quid markup for the cost of the cost of the damage to the tools. Okay, that's me 4 of them. That one might be better changed out for that one. Let's just have a quick look. That one goes there even. That one goes there. Let's try that. I'm just slightly short on one of those. Yeah, so you know, I have put a small markup on this, but it's God, it's, as you can tell, it's a lot of hard effort markup. And like I say, one of these days, right now, just doing a stainless one, you will have the case of the exploding tool. Unfortunately, is how it's going to be. Okay, so I think this one should jump 3 up the line and go in there instead. Be a shorter one. That's good. So these 4, I'm going to need to do that filing underneath the overhangy bit. So with this being cut back into a slight overhang, I get to fill the ends with some material, then a clear finish over the top of that to make sure it's all nice. Okay, so there's me 4. That's a bit long still. Take a bit back off there. Right. Okay, so let me just push a couple of things out of the way. So we've got the first one done, which I'll put back in here. You saw it being done. We've got the last 4 done, which I will continue to shape off camera and size them up with the 4 we kept out. But I think I'll stop now and recharge, and I'll come back when I've got them all cut to size and the time is approaching to clean the slots again, because I've still got all the other slots to clean. But I'll come back when I'm ready to tap them in. Right, whew. We are back. Trying to see what I can see. Oh, that's not the right way. We are back, ready for we are ready for, whoa, that's not quite what I wanted to happen, but anyway. Right, so we are ready for some fretting. So I'm going to get going. So we have a piece of wood block for tapping. It's actually hardly got any radius on it at all, which is fine by me. It's the equivalent of using what do you call it? Equivalent of using just the hammer itself. So I'm going to just get going. Where's my wire? Here it is. My fret wire, all ready to go in, right down to the last few, which are going to be, or are already pre-cut, so they're going to be exactly the right length. So here's how I do it. I get myself, now I've in the past sort of got ambitious and tried to do several at a time, and there's nothing technically wrong with that, except for the fact that it's better to take them one by one and make sure they work. Now this one, I'm going to just tap in place like so. Oh. And then I have tons of useful this stuff, kitchen roll to wipe off the stuff. And the idea is then to just, I'm going to dump that on the floor and come back to it. Yeah, so we are just tapping it down, and I'm resting on the cork thing here, nothing touching anything else, so we're in good hands. Now I'm just looking at this. I did some of these some of these I did a little tighter, looser than the others. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little thing here. I'm going to tweak the edges of these I think, which one am I going to use? Oh, I think I used the regular pliers before. Just give the edges a little twist, and what we get is a little burr that will help me bite this down a little better. So I'll do it for the first 4 of these. Give it a little bit of extra grip. It'll probably stay in with the glue, but I just want to be absolutely sure. Yeah, that feels better already. Line up, squelch, squelch, squelch. So, executive decision there, that I wasn't happy quite with the seat of that. So, it's much better to make the change right there and then before going any further, because we don't want anything to feel like it's going to come out or not seat properly. Right, so there's my wet cloth, and then me drying up cloth. This. still thinking that this end here doesn't feel quite right. So bear with me. We'll get it. We'll get it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the twist right on the end here. I did this before on a couple of different refrets, and you get a little bit of extra bite. Handy. Right. That'll just give me an idea of how much I need to twist the other ones. Feels good. Just double check it. Safe. I'm not 100% convinced with that one. I'm going to come back to that one. Let's make this one right. There's only 4 of these that are slightly too big, so I'm going to make sure that they're good. So these just basically add a little burr to it, which helps increase the gripability. So I'll kind of get a feel for these, and if I don't like them, then I will shift to potential of a different glue. But that's the only way I'll consider using CA glue. Feels quite good. So this end of this one is not quite right for me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to twist it a bit more. So I'm going to run along with these, and then by the time we get into the next few, it'll be tighter fit anyway. Right, it's getting late, so let's make sure this is supported. Last one of these. I've already tweaked that one, but I'll do a bit more. Okay, so we are nearly ready to just run on these other ones because they should all be snugger than this one. So I'm probably just going to stop the camera, or maybe I'll just carry on. I haven't got anything interesting or clever to say. Because it's that time of night. And I'm not that sparkling company right now. It's not that late. Not for a man who's had a good couple of hours lazing around in a hammock in the sun, enjoying the weather. So what I'm going to do is, if I'm not happy with the first couple of ones, then tomorrow I will peg them down with a little bit of CA glue. I'm pretty certain they'll be good. And let's see, this will be the next of the snugger fitting ones. So that's just going to go in without any adjustments. Looks all right. Right. Okay, so I think I'll go off camera because I could do with listening to the radio, and all I'm going to do is more of the same all the way to the end, and then we'll come back tomorrow when it's time to nurse my blisters. They should just about recover actually. Yeah, we'll come back tomorrow for the end beveling and any additional tweaks on these here. I think they should be fine actually. All right, look at me soaked. See you tomorrow. Have a good Friday night. Bye. Good evening all. Well, it's England, so I have to tell you the weather, look at that, 24 degrees out there now, 6 o'clock at night, still boiling in here of course, and I'm back with John's PRS, 26.5 degrees in here, so a degree cooler than yesterday. How about that? So we've got the frets left overnight to set. I've gone over just now with my extremely now ruined, look at those babies. They've really taken a toll. That's what stainless steel does to your tools, ladies and gentlemen. So it is pretty destructive. So when you charge a premium for being able to buy new tools, you must be sure to put the money aside and buy new tools. So I have obviously still got a couple of decent cutters, but when that one goes, I need another one like that really. Anyway, so I've put on the buffers ready for doing the edge beveling. Also, what have I done? Oh yes, so some of these were a little bit long, so still, and I couldn't quite reach them with that pliers there over here like this. So what I did was I took the Dremel to the edge of, let's see which one, you should be able to spot it. That one, I guess. That one there, look, took a Dremel to the end of that one. So they're the pre-finished ones, ready to be softened, sanded off. But this one cut straight with the Dremel. A little bit difficult, not that, you know, stainless steel and a Dremel cutter are implacable foes. But anyhow, so I got them shortened mostly to the length that I can use the, what's that mark there? It's like a pen mark. Is that mine? Oh, it could be. I'll take that off. Yeah, so everything basically trimmed back as far as it will go and ready for the end beveling block. That's a pretty messy process in terms of making dust. So I think I'll carry on the work surface before I clean it. I'm just doing a little test over here, a quick test spray of a piece of 3D printer plastic. I just want to make sure this doesn't, it doesn't dissolve the plastic. I just sprayed a bit of black paint on there. So in a few minutes I'll come back and do the actual piece. Yeah, so I think I'll just get ready to work this. So as you can see, that's my limit for reaching with the block. Obviously I'm going to work that way, that way from this side, and then turn it around and work the other way up to the end. So I'll put this on, even though I'm using a one camera thing at the moment. Sorry, it was just simpler than going through the mess around. And what I'll probably do is just get this going and show you. As you can see, I'm already starting to boil. I'll show you it sort of starting, and then we'll go from there. Now, with regard to this, I could place this on here and support it like so, which is one possible way. And then the idea is we're going to run. Oh dear, I left that one a bit long. Let's go over there for a minute and double check this one. Now you're going to get to see again how hard this stuff is. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Too much. So I'll just make a bit of an impression on it. So it's one of the rules I would say is to get shot of as much overhang as you reasonably can. Oh lordy, before you get going with the end beveling file. Whew, that's hard work. Yesterday's blisters are threatening to come back, but not quite. So we've got our blocks sitting on here later. Actually, you know what, I'm just going to cut them short a little bit because they don't need to be quite that big. Come on off here. You go like so, and you go like so. I just want them to protect. So we could place it down on there like that, that's feasible. So here's our weapon of choice. Now we're going to push this way, and there's a lot of weight on this here, so that's not going to move around too much, but we might get another thingy, clamp, really just to stop the whole thing moving lengthwise. So we could place that just there as a physical stop. Like so. Now when I'm working with a neck on its own, I tend to clamp at the end here as well, stop the neck moving. But again, you know, I've got my body here as well, which isn't so bad. So the idea is we're going to use this end beveling block. Now, as you start to run it, you feel the bits that stick out more than the others. And at the moment, I'm kind of going a fairly oblique angle because I just want to get started and get a feel of where everything is. And we're going to need to get right to the exact length and bevel using this tool. So you can see I sort of started now, and I think I've got a reasonable run without too much sticking up in the way. And it goes up as far as here, and if I run past, I should just about hit this rubber stop. It's not perfect, so I don't want to overly depend on it. So as you get up to the end here, you have to put a bit of palm pressure in, because it's easy to sort of miss out the pressure at this end and leave them too long. So really, the secret of this, and if you can see because I can zoom you in, the secret of this is you can start to see the metal cutting back, and we will get there over time, right down to both the length endwise, and we won't feel any burr or anything here, and then we'll put a bevel onto it, which will be steeper, less angled than previously. So we have to do this to both sides of the neck, and I'll carry on doing it, but it is a bit long-winded, and the reason it's long-winded is you have to be very careful. The easiest slip you can make with this is to miss and run over the top like this. The design of this almost is a kind of a bit of a curve on there, and it almost invites the block to move. Now, realistically, what you'll see me doing as I get going is I'll put my hand on here and push down. As long as nothing moves too much, you can see that I don't want the guitar to move, but I don't really want to be holding on with this hand. I want two hands on this block, and this is pretty good. I notice it's bending when I press. The neck is obviously bending when I press down on there. So if I'm nervous about that, or I feel there's any issue with that, what I can do is I can find myself either something in the middle. If I can't get the right height to begin with, then I can prop it up with a couple of pieces, if I can get there. Really just it doesn't even have to be foam both times, but we can do something like so. Nearly. Oh, that's pretty much on the mark. Well, that's wood, so I don't really want that there. So I'm going to squeeze this bit of foam in there, like so. And that will take the slack. So, you know, it's nothing overly scientific about it, but it's kind of on the fly, and we're making sure things. So I'm blocking this from moving, and then doing a bit of an angle, because I want to just start by taking away. Now this is wandering off sideways at this point, so it naturally shows me it wants to lock into there. It's kind of sitting in there. So I think I probably want to do is get this one and just stop it wandering any further this way. So the two of them together make a nice stopper. I've already drunk one of my cans of drink. I've got 2 cans of, what's that stuff? Lucozade. A big bottle of very, very weak watery squash, and a bottle of water, fizzy. So this feels, at the moment, this is feeling quite nice, and I've got to remember that I've got to get it all the way up to this. Just checking this here, it's got a good pad on there, but I might want a pad of rubber in there as well. Finds me another pad. There's always bits of rubber foam kicking about, so I can sort of lock this in there like so. Where are you going to go? Right, you come out there. Where are you going? That's it. Nice mix of things. Yeah, so it's just now a matter of working this and remembering to keep the pressure down as much as possible. Now, it's also moving a little bit that way, since sometimes I'll what's the word, clamp this down as well, which I can do. Need another pad for it. Where's all Any spare bits? That's a spare bit. I think we could use a bit of this. Yeah, so basically it's a bit of a beveled, contoured body, but so I just want to hold it a little bit, stop it from moving, so that's okay. It's quite nicely supported there. So 2 hands up and down, and then if you've got to concentrate a bit more on one end, so stay there. Nearly caught my finger under there. Rare. Now, the thing is that I've found in the past, the temptation is always to lean very hard into this and try and get there quickly. And that's often where danger creeps in. Now what we're almost certainly going to do at this point is eventually, when you approach this and bevel it in a straight vertical line perpendicular to the edge of the neck, what's going to happen is eventually you'll come in close and you'll have to cut. It'll contact the finish. Now we kind of want it to do that anyway because we've lost bits of the finish in cutting out the slots properly, which is kind of to be expected. So we've got some repair to do, and we're kind of prepared to do it. But you can't get an absolute flush fit without contacting that finish, and it can be very scary if you've not done it before. But I think the thing you have to remember is that finish is clear finish, I should say, is clear finish. So you do have the power to replace it where necessary, not to be too afraid. So the temptation is to leave it slightly short of, to stop short of the end. You end up with overhanging frets that cut into your finger. You could then try and treat each one individually and smooth it off, but then you it's possible to do, but you end up then with cutting into the finish on one spot and not the other. So my advice would be start out slightly off the vertical that way. So get close in, get everything beveled back as close as you can get it, with just a little bit remaining on the bottom end of the frets to be taken care of. This top one, I have to be more thorough with this because it's right up by the fore. If I don't pay attention to this, it will get omitted. So you can use a mirror at this point to see what's going on. You're just about not quite touching the material, the edge yet. So we don't need to hit that fourth one out, but we need everyone from that point onwards. So we have to be thorough. And the same with down here. This first fret is liable to get missed because we're frightened of hitting the wood here. That bit clanging into the wood is not a good look, but we've got a lot of room, and as long as we don't let it go, this block go past the end of the fingerboard, we're in no danger of hitting the headstock. So I'm pushing and pulling with some pressure. So you can probably tell I'm starting to hit the finish there. It's coming up a little bit of powder on there, which is okay because we're going to kind of retouch it up. So just looking at this now, where I see my reflection, I'm hitting the finish there but not here yet. So I've got to straighten up a bit here, and now make sure to snick off the overhanging wire, and that will, as I said, involve hitting the finish on the side. You can see it kicking up dust now. I know I sound like Apollo 11 pilot. Yep, scraping into the finish. This is good. Now, sometimes you get tempted to try and avoid hitting that altogether, but I have to say, other than a bound neck where you can only concentrate on the angle, you don't have to trim the end, because by definition it's already trimmed to fit. When you do an unbound neck like this, you are almost certain to cut into the finish. So you have to be sort of mentally prepared for that, really. Now I'm attempting to do a fairly steep bevel on here, and I'm having to do it by eye because there's no kind of given guide or measurement you can work on it. So it is a matter of eyeballing it. Some people think that when you have a fairly steep angle, you have a really uncomfortable fret, and actually it's not the truth. The truth is the fret is uncomfortable when the edges, or the faces of the fret, aren't rounded off. Let's have a look now. So we've got everywhere cutting the finish, which is okay, so it means everything is in effect flush. And if I run my finger upwards, just about, if I catch anything that pulls, then we have to do more vertical edge trimming. I would say those possibly down here. So I go back to vertical right here, and I just do a bit more pulling backwards and forwards whilst holding it under control. And as I said before, the ends tend to often miss, or take longer because they just somehow miss out. So that feels like the right length, and then the only remaining thing is what I'm going to call 25 degree, 30 degree bevel. Right. And while you can hear it hitting the wire, then it's telling you there is still some material being removed. Now, I am putting some force into it because I'm holding this in a sort of stiff angle. I'm trying to put some pressure on it to give me the bevel I want. And this part gets really tired, but it's worth it in the long run. So now I feel down there, and I will look down there at the angle. That's pretty good. That's almost vertical down right there. Well, not, yeah, it just needs a little bit of a turn at this end. So check the angle again, and then just concentrate on this end bit here. Nothing else for a minute. So this, it's worth taking the time with this, and I think the temptation is to try and do it too quickly with too much force, and then that's where your mistakes creep in. I'm going to drink some near water. In many ways, the work session here has to finish when I run out of water, but it will come to a finish. Tomorrow it's cooler, and then by Monday, so what are we on the week we're on? Yeah, by Monday and Tuesday it's going to be down to 18, so it's dropping 10 degrees from yesterday through to about Monday. Right, so that's the first bit of it done. What I would then do on any side, and I'll probably just do the other side off camera now because I'm hot and sweaty, but you've seen one side done. So the thing I would then do on this side is, as long as I'm convinced this is all cut to length, there's nothing, even if there is a tiny bit overhanging, I can always come back to it with an individual file. But then what I want to do is use this concave fret rounding file like this, and I can put in a kind of rounded edge to the fret. Now this is pretty effective fret. I tend to use it quite low down on the fret, like so, at about maybe 30 degrees. Again, I want a rounded off fret, but I don't want to mess around with the available playing length. But obviously I have to take a tiny fraction to round it off. We're putting a sort of a roll into the edge of the fret, so it's really getting this rounded off then becomes a base for using a lot of sandpaper after that. And then after the sandpaper we wait till the point where I've done the setup, and I'll be leveling the frets. Now, is that a little feel of, no, that's the finish I can feel. Yeah, so we'll have a matter of getting it a certain amount of the way now, and then finishing it off with the in the polishing out process after the full geometric setup, as I call it. So this is the beginning of the rounding off. But I think the bit that makes it playable is when you get to the sanding and polishing out, because if you do it slowly and thoroughly, you end up with pretty much no sharp edges. Even if they're quite steep, they just feel like tall frets. So it really is a matter of time and patience. Rounding this off now, so all the way down. Now this file is another good reason why we've got the Gorilla Tape and so on protecting it, because by the time this comes off the end here, it tends to hit the finish if you're not careful, and it hits it if you are careful. So I'll do all of these, and then I'll go over with the next file, and then I'll do a bit with the sandpaper, and then we'll kind of stop and leave it for the next part. Also, what will happen is once I've done this, I'll go take the guitar home tonight, and tonight I will sit it on the kitchen table, and I will touch up fill in the any missing bits of the finish, and just build that up, sand it back a little bit, build it up some more, so we end up with repaired edges, which we can then also sand and polish out through a whole series of papers, and then finally with a bit of micro mesh. We could even buff it if we wanted to, but I don't think it's not really necessary. So I started pretty tall, or pretty steep on these fret ends, as you saw, and I'll try and give you when I finish this, I'll spin the guitar around and give you a close-up of the ends. So yeah, the secret is slowly soften it all off. And I think some people, when they do frettings, I think see that one's got a little bit of extra, probably needs some working over manually, or we can go back again with the end block. I think people sometimes think that to get a soft fret, it all depends on the extending the angle of the fret end, the bevel, and actually I don't think it does. I think that does help to make it smoother or feel less intrusive, but it costs quite a lot in fret metal as well. So I don't think you have to do it, is what I'm saying, providing you get this bit right and you take your time. And what you want is to be convinced that when you move on to the next stage, so now I'm doing the 4 that I've already rounded off before I fitted them. I'm doing them again in the same style as the others, so I'm kind of bringing them into the family as far as the feel goes. Obviously not much to do because they're already there. So that's the first bit. What I will do is let's have another quick go down here, just to be on the absolute safe side. We'll go for the vertical, and we'll if we have to, we'll cost that extra bit of finish on the edge, because we've got plenty of scope to thicken that up. I think we're pretty much there. Yeah. So that may have just sharpened up these bits a tiny bit on the edges, but the second file I go over with is this little soft edged file down here. And what I do with that is I use it to tuck right into the corner where the fret joins the wood, and I just snip off that little tangy bit that overhangs, or that just sticks out right in that joint between the wood and the fret. So that just helps to cover every aspect of what could be sharp feeling. So right into the corner, and it's got a little soft edge, soft edge, which means I can run it along the wood. It does shine it a little bit, but it doesn't damage the wood, but it helps me to get right into that corner and then lift out the cornery spikes. So that's what I will do on both sides, and then what I'll show you is a little bit of what's the word, sandpaper, up to the point where I'll leave it alone, all the way through here. I think I probably cut this one a bit extra here, so I'm just going to run this again here, just to make sure that a bit of block didn't create lots of new sharp edges there. I think it's okay, but no harm in double checking. So yeah, it feels good. So I've got to do all of this again for Mark's Gibson Les Paul Custom. I look forward to it. I'm not joking, just because it's, you know, it's good. It's good solid work from a earning point of view, refretting. But actually, there's no doubt about it, it's one of the things I love to do most because it's so rewarding. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going to get a bit of 240 grit paper, and I'm just going to roll it into a tight little tube, and when it's rolled into a tight little tube, I'm going to run along the edge in flush with, or in alignment with the bevel angle, and I'm just going to, you know, run it without fear of it hitting the finish, because we know it's going to. So I'm just trying to take off any obvious edges that, ow, I can't quite get in the end there, but that's all right. Then I'll use it again, really tighten it, and this time I'll sort of go over the edge, sort of along the fingerboard. Whew, I am sweaty, like so, and I'll just let it, no, it needs to be tighter. Let's do it again. You can put it around a pencil or something, but I tend to just try and use the plain paper, and it kills the paper pretty quickly, so you end up getting some new stuff, short order. But if you get a tight little tube like so, and then just run it up and down over the frets. Now we're leaning in beyond the bevel and leaning into the actual tops of the frets themselves. This one's just in the way there, but that's okay, better safe than sorry. So I'm kind of using this tube, hopefully it's sort of rolling up and over the frets and helping to soften everything off. So let's wipe this down a bit. So I'm now thinking, okay, that's not bad at all. Let's turn this over. I'll have to rearrange it anyway to do the other side. So I'll turn it over for the purposes of filming. You can see the mess that this has made. So what I think I'll do is just one over there, and I'll just literally brush that off on the floor. Shake out the rag. Let's bring you move the camera around before I go off. So here's my side, okay, rounded frets, more or less, ends to fill, and finish to repair, okay. And then once we come back to sanding everything again, it'll tidy up the edges as well. So we'll be kind of sanding this edge of finish, so that will all feel lovely. That could do with a bit more work with the end file there. It's just that sharpy side to side edge. Number 4. So that's kind of where I think I'll stop filming for now, because you can see I'm disastrously sweaty. I don't mind being sweaty, it's not the most attractive style for filmmaking, but it just goes to show how the temperature is up here. I'm going to run this into the foam because that's what was stopping me reaching the edge to get the nice contour on it. I'm going to go again with this. That's the 4th one. So I'll round that off, round that off, round that off, round that off. Yeah, well, I was there. I was going to show the other thing we can do. Of course, yes, the other thing we can do is this. So if we sense anywhere along the way that we've now got a fret that needs to be kind of tweaked, we can now come over the top with our file and just attack it straight on. Personally, it's actually quite a nice thing to do anyway, because it has a really nice crunchy feel to it. We sort of can know that we've got the thing. Now I can see that this is cut inwards. The fret appears to be slightly cut inwards, and that's because of this strange extra bevel that they've put on the edge of this fingerboard, which I really don't understand why. So hence I've got a sort of little drop off and then the end of these frets, which is quite unusual. The only time I've seen somebody do it was actually quite disastrously in that Gordon Smith guitar that I did, where they'd really taken a lot of the the fingerboard's width away with this unnecessary and weird deliberate bevel, and it meant that it's slightly annoying that not all of these, some of these have little slot gaps and some of them come right to the edge. I think that was my tang lengths could have been more consistent. Once I've blown out the gaps with compressed air, we'll see what we got. I'm going to do it with compressed air on a brush. Yeah, so some of them, you can just, if you pick up the sense of an overhang, you can just take it up like this and just take care of it. Okay, nearly done. Yeah, so some of them don't come quite to the end, and some of them do, and then there's some gaps, but we'll fill them all. And there's some cracking there, but we'll fill it in with a brush on finish later on tonight, and we work it up slowly to nice and smooth. So it's not a quick process, and it takes a lot of careful work, as you can see. Right, I think covered in sweat on this lovely 20. Oh, it's gone up. See, my presence here has taken it up 3 degrees, 27.5 degrees, 27 degrees, 27.2. So you'll see that I will now change my direction reset up to put it the other way. And once I've got it set up, I will get rid of myself. So, what am I looking for? A block. I was looking for a bigger block. This one. And this one isn't such an easy place to clamp it. Not so much room. Let's try there. That's fine. It's not pushing the neck. Whoops! It's not pushing the neck down. And then we have a stopper up here with a protective block here, like so. That will stop it from moving anywhere that way. Very nice. And then we're going this way, so we don't really need anything else up here. Can we work on it? Yeah. Okay. So that's that for now. I'm going to put on some Saturday evening entertainment. I hope you won't begrudge me that. And I'll see you, when will I see you? I'll take this home and I'll see you when I bring it back to clean the bridge and then do the, what I call the geometric setup, so that I've got it all ready. One of the things I was going to make mention of, which I didn't do just then, I was going to mention the fact that in the past I found that being able to work with the Dremel thing onto these frets is never a totally bad thing. So if you think about it, if you've got a load of overhang here and you really can't seem to get, or you don't want to put in loads of effort here, you can take your Dremel-y type thing. We'll exchange the cutting disc for a sanding drum, and what we'll show is just, by the way, while I'm doing this, the finish on the guitar gets dusty, so don't worry about that. This is going to get through a complete clean up, dismantle the bridge and everything, clean it all like it's new. So yeah, if you want to help yourself along, you can do something like this. But what you don't want to do is spend too long on any one of them, because they do get hot and you don't want to burn the surrounding wood or anything. As long as you keep moving, you can help take down some of the extended material. It's not exactly quick, but you will agree that it turns out to be less exhausting, perhaps, than pushing the block. And for someone like me, it's more controllable. I feel more in charge sometimes than using the block. The block can do that damage if it jumps off. This is held carefully in both hands, just doing the fret ends themselves without any risk to the finish. So you can feel the one you just was on, it gets hot, but apart from that, you could happily go up and down that all day, which I might do after this, but it's quite dusty. So once I've got these back level, I'm then going to hang the guitar up, clean up, and get ready to do any. I could start the finish repairs here on the side, on the very edge. But I'll probably just spend more time just making sure that the frets are perfectly rounded off and everything. I mean, it actually feels smooth as anything right now, but it's going to only get better once we've buried the fret ends in clear poly and obviously sanded it back smooth, flush with everything else. Right, thanks for watching. Ooh, one camera shoot. I'll see you. See, look how nice that looks. Well, it's starting to look. I'll see you later. Goodness gracious me. I have to apologise. I am down to minus camera because somehow I forgot to bring my phone camera here. So I've only got one camera. That's you. And I am wrapping up with the refretted PRS, ladies and gentlemen, and variants either side of that. Yes, so we've last few days I've been home doing edge building upping on here. So we've got nice, lovely smooth edge to accompany our lovely tall frets, new frets. Often you'll get, it's quite common that the when you're cutting out the fret slots, what happens is if there's thick finish on the edge, it can create little chip outs on the edge. And the first time when I did the poly finish, I didn't sand right back because I wanted to try and preserve as much as possible. But what happened was, as a result of that, sorry, I'm looking for glue. As a result of that, I kind of encased the little chip out bits into places. I encased them in the finish, the new clear finish, which I didn't think looked very good. So it was fairly mild, but I just decided to scrape it back to wood, and I think I'll do that from now on. I think that's the thing I learned, is to go back to the wood of the fretboard, the fingerboard. Yeah, so anyway, so what we have here is we have all the bits ready to go back on from the arrangement that we had before, because I've done the setup on this. So having now, while you weren't with me, I have polished out the frets and done all of that part of the setup, so everything's lovely and clean and tidy. I'm just going to lay this on here like so, press down on there, get it as smooth and flush as possible. That's going to be there. It's actually quite difficult to get it completely flush to a millimetre of micron. I'm just going to get a pushy thing just to make sure that that's better. I'm upright. That's what I want, really. Stand that in there like so. Oh, right. For some reason, I don't know why, but this glue isn't doing the best. I've had this loosely fitted on here before and it worked just fine, but I'm going to put on my extra new big specs, Grandad's specs, because I think what's happened here, I shouldn't have to shout, I think what's happened is I've got a little step here that I'm not falling quite inside of. So yeah, that's not exactly what's happening. So I have the space to thin down this nut a tiny bit. I'm just going to take back that edge, and I've got some fresh sanding blocks. Yoo-hoo! Look at that, yum yum yum. So I'm going to very carefully sand this nut. Just keep an eye on what's going on. Ooh. The only trouble with using flat tusk is when you stick it on a piece of freshly done sandpaper, sanding block, it turns it black straight away. Okay, so let's have a look. Why is this? Is it still? There's a little edge to this, and it's fractionally too. I don't know what the word is. There's an edge, and I'm just outside of it, so I'm going to try and bring it back to the right size. So yeah, it's been quite a challenge in some ways with this, because you know, you look at something and you think you're nearly there, and you think, no, I'm going to go backwards a stage or two and get this done exactly how I want it. So that's what I did. And some might call it perfectionism, but if you know there's any bit of you that isn't totally happy with the way something is, there you go, that's sitting perfectly. Yeah, if you know that you're in any way unhappy with how it is, you just have to go and redo it. I'm going to use slightly thicker glue. Ooh, can't see anything with my big grandpa eyes. Yeah, to get it right. Oh, keep away. Get it right and do it right. There. Very good, very good. Well, that was working. Quite difficult to get it to seat. I don't want to stick to the very end of the fingerboard. It's not an ideal situation, but hopefully that's good. Okay, so with our crappy one camera view, oh, and should I keep my zoomed on reading glasses on? I might as well. So we've got all of that redone, lovely, tall, fairly sharp and fairly narrowly beveled frets. We've got yeah, everything ready to go, ready to restring now and stretch out. So let's get going with the restrings. We've got our Dario thingies. Oh, I'll bend down and pick that up later. So when it comes to tuning stability, of course the PRS is a good start point, because the way it's designed was deliberately to give the straightest possible string pull, which is a really good decision. What I'm just going to do is go with the two middle strings first, he said, waking up to that along the way, because I want to just hold the nut down first. Yeah, so Paul Smith made this thing with a very straight string through pull, and that goes a very long way to why can't I get through here? Hello, come on. Yeah, it really helps the string pull cleanly through the nut without any angles. So it's not impossible. If you get your nut right, you can have an angled nut, or sorry, an angled headstock, or a change of direction of the strings, and it can still keep good tuning. But it really helps to begin with the way you mean to carry on, if you know what I mean. So I'm just going to line up all these tuners. They're quite loose, but they tighten up very well when you load them. I think they're also brilliantly geared. I don't know what the gearing is on these things, but I think they're variously geared. So as always, I'm going to pull back a quarter of a turn on these before hand locking them and then winding them. Now that is my little concession towards being able to undo the string if I wish to at a certain future point, and redo it without it breaking. That's the idea for me. All string locking mechanisms like this are a crushing sort of device, which it may be better engineered on a PRS, but even still, I still think it's go the right way. Tighten up. I still think it's wise to add that 1/2, 1 centimetre I call it, thumbnail's amount of string. So this is now locking the thingy into place, the nut, and yeah, I think we're almost there. In the other room I'm in the middle of spraying the Gibson, respraying the fingerboard, refinishing the fingerboard on a Gibson 1974 Gibson Les Paul. I came to, I was asked to refret it, and we decided to try and keep the original. Actually, it looked like aftermarket, previous owner gloss finishing. It was a bit, I think it was a bit, didn't look very professional or very long lasting. Anyway, and some of it was already flaking, so we decided to try and keep it. There's not much had flaked, but I had a worry from the start that that kind of finish is not going to stand up very well to refretting riggers, because you have to kind of pull up frets, and then the crowns of the frets not only they not only pull up, they break the seal of the finish. Sometimes they pull it up. Very often it leaves behind ridges of finish that if your crown is even slightly wider, you have to sand quite a bit wider to try and tame that, and actually you can't really do it without a fair bit of expanding of your sanding babe, over the out into the space of the fret itself, or the space, fingerboard space. Anyway, you can tell where it's going. I got it done, but in the final tapping of the frets, some of the finish was just coming off like little broken sheets of little amber sheets of glass. Incredibly brittle, incredibly old, poly, incredibly thin. So I had a kind of, we had to think overnight, and we could have lived with it, but actually I don't know whether it would have survived the fingerboard masking off process, and I just thought all that work, and actually there were 2 frets that I weren't happy with the way they'd seated on top of that sort of crusty old finish. So I just thought, I'm going to be going round in circles here. If I try and leave the frets on, if more finish comes off when I'm putting on or using the masking tape, then I'm going to have to start again anyway. So I just thought, well, let's go and strip it back. So we went back to bare wood, and actually what was nice is that I wasn't happy with the way that the finish anyway covered over the natural mother of pearl. It just made it look like this yellow plastic egg yolk sort of thing. Anyway, I think it was mid-80s, it was refretted, and probably somebody put on some finish there. So I took it back, and the first thing I did was I sprayed this afternoon, well, I came up this morning to take advantage of the good low humidity, and I sprayed some amber, vintage amber first, lightly, and then I sprayed some clear coat, satin clear on it. And actually when I came back and looked at it, it's too yellowy for my liking, or too ambery. So I just thought, nope, took it all off again, which is okay. I've also got another set of frets sitting right there where you can't see them, pinned up, ready to go, which are going to be complete new set of frets to get seated properly on that new finish that I'm doing. So I like refinishing, because in doing so I'm putting the neck back into a condition where at least I've got control over the smoothness, flatness of the surface, and that's really important to getting a good refret. In fact, I wasn't getting an ideal refret out of it. This one was very different because I didn't have all that finish getting in the way. Anyway, so I have got a tuner, but I've got to buy a tune fork. Must buy a tune fork. Well, that beautifully goes back to where I had it set up during the fret leveling. So apart from a bit of stretching now, that's almost done. I'll probably do a little bit of scraping to round off the tiny overhang on the edge of the nut. Okay, so I'm going to do some stretching. Let's have a look where our last fret action lies. 1.5, still on, dead on the thing. A bit lower, bit lower, bit lower. 1.2, yeah. Obviously it's going to go out of tune. So for stretching, the good old stretching trick comes in. We grab thumb and forefinger, give it a good push. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the tremolo here floating, because the bridge screws were up at a certain height, which suggests it was floating anyway. I don't remember actually checking whether it was floating, but I think it was floating horizontal parallel to the top, and it was clearly pivoted at the position where I photographed the screws, which was a fair bit up, so there was obviously a bit of back pull, which is absolutely fine. I think that probably makes sense if I get the tuner into play here. I don't know, truthfully, I don't think I'll ever tidy up enough to find the tuning fork, so like one or two other things that have gone AWOL over a period of time, I think in reality this is going to be a case of buying another one, and then possibly, you know, my descendants will find the original one when they take all this apart. So let's go for a... Oops. And we will stretch again. So usually it's the thicker strings, the wound strings, that hold the most slack, but in the case of these big 10.5 to 10.5 down to 52, I think it is, these are quite cable-like from my taste, so they're not as bendy. I guess just because they're thicker. So what I'll do is, as I say, I'll use the standard method in a minute once I've got the tuning stable. I'll check the relief and things like that. And then I'll use the standard tremolo tuning method. I may make a very small adjustment on these outer strings here, because this is a 12-inch radius nut and this guitar is a 10.5-inch radius, something like that, so it's not perfectly matched, so we're a little higher at the edges than we need to be. I mean, it's not bad at all, but that's just the difference between the two radii taking effect. So let me do the tremolo thing for a minute. So what I'm going to do is get my post-it notes and tremolo arm. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lift the base of the tremolo up until it looks, actually I'm going to go a little bit more than, the top is sloping at this point, so I'm going to go a tiny bit up on that to keep it parallel to the direction of the top. Actually, it could be even a tiny bit more. So I'm thinking parallel with the fingerboard more than anything else. Parallel with the fingerboard, I think that'll do. So what I then do is, I can do it this way, is I'm going to tune it to pitch. Now, if you're following this, the reason this is going to work is because currently, from earlier on, when I was doing the leveling, I made sure that the tremolo claw was screwed all the way into the back, in against the wall. So that's the claws exerting springs, exerting their maximum pull at the moment. So I'm tuning this up with the claw pushed all the way in, with the line of the bridge parallel to the fretboard just about. So having tuned that up, then I let go and everything tips backwards because the springs overpower the strings. Everything goes sharp. And then the fun part is that we get the correct screwdriver and we ping the A, or whatever we like to use. Where's the A? Okay, and then the idea is we now unscrew the tremolo screws and we let the springs relax a bit. And how do we know when to stop? Well, we do it when that's become A. It's now below B flat. Now it's coming down north of A, sharp of A. So we're nearly there, because we've not got a full range of movement like a normal Strat. That's now sitting at A. And I can see that it's up at the back, parallel to the fingerboard, or parallel with the fingerboard I should say. And now if we put the tremolo arm in, we've got a range of up and down. Lovely. Okay, so a couple of little things to do. I'm going to make sure that all the nut slots are leaning backwards in the correct position, or correct angle. We need a backwards rake really, so I'm just going to get we should be at the ideal first fret action already. I'd say we are just about. And the B is a fraction tool, so we will take the B and we will start by just running backwards at a slope a little bit, and then let it just cut the front a tiny bit. Let me double check. Perfect, exactly on. So it's a very small adjustment, and here we have quite a bit more because of the radius difference. So we take the highest one, the 10 in this case, and we'll go backwards a bit first, a bit of widening as well, and I can see the point at which the blade just cuts the top, and that's still too high. So get the right one. Now this is a matter of trial and error. You have to keep going. There's no way of knowing how you're going to get there other than by taking it slowly and stopping and checking. So very close to it, and that it basically is just going to be about everything. Just about everything, and then I'm going to go and do a bit more spraying into other room. It's almost there now, the tiniest bit more, and it's such a minuscule amount of alteration that we just have to be very careful that we don't overdo it. I'm happy with that. So we'll come out down this side, and we're going to go, well, that's what that one's on the mark already. In fact, the G is in fact a fraction over. Let's put this one, spiked myself. Little finger off loose to one side. Got in trouble. Right, 17, let's do a tiny bit on the 17. Bit widening and backwardsing first. Widening, backwardsing. Now a little bit of cut so you can see it cutting the front edge. And that's nearly there. Probably just on the mark. So very small adjustments indeed. Yeah. Tiny bit on the low E, and this is difficult in a way because this one has a lot of material, and it sort of initially kind of doesn't cut as easily because it's so hefty. So we're doing it, that's fine by eye. I'm happy with that. Okay, let's just check the relief on this neck now. That's now we've got strings on. That's a bit more of a pull, so the radius, the curve has gone up a bit, so I'm going to tighten now. Again, how much? Just feel it start to bite. Double check it. Hardly any. There we go. Let's have a just check. Maybe add a tiny bit more in. Yeah, a tiny bit. So that will go counterclockwise to just even that out. So then we're pretty much done. We'll put on the cover, truss rod adjuster cover. I think that's good. Truss rod adjuster cover, and we are ready to go after that. Quite a marathon of a refret, I have to say, but you know, challenging and good anyway. So 513 cover plate. Nearly. There we go. Turn off. Back plate naturally. And some, put these on low torque. There we are. Ready to go. Using the fingers to hold this screw in place so it can't slip and fall over and the screwdriver go off sideways. It's a critical thing to do. Never use it on a guitar screw anywhere near the bodywork unless you're holding the screw up like so. There we go. That can go in there because it fits pretty close to the body. There we have it, PRS 513 refretted. I'll probably do the little extra bit of what I'll do at home is I'll get a blade and I will go like so, and I will very gently scrape the edge of this nut just so that it's totally smooth, as smooth as I can possibly get it, and also possibly just round off the edge of it too, because that's from the factory, that's always a little bit sharper than it needs to be. Anyway, that's for at home. Yay! Love it. Phew, all done. Thank you for watching the one camera version. I've got a bit more spraying to do, 60% humidity, no phones to take pictures, no phones to look at the clock. I have to listen to the radio. See you soon.